The screaming stops when I adjust the neural probe's frequency to 47.3 terahertz. Perfect. The pirate's body convulses against the restraints, military-grade titanium alloy, naturally, because I've learned that desperation grants humans remarkable strength. His eyes roll back, showing only the whites, but I know he's still conscious. The parasites I've introduced to his nervous system ensure that. Please, he gasps when I allow him a moment's respite. I have children, so did I. My voice carries harmonics now, undertones that shouldn't exist in human vocal cords. The parasites have been thorough in their modifications. Tell me about Kepler Station. Tell me about the family you helped slaughter in Research Lab 7. His face crumples with recognition. Good. I was beginning to worry that 12 years had dimmed his memory of that day. But terror has a way of sharpening recollection, and I am very good at inspiring terror now. I lean closer, and he flinches at the sight of my face. I understand his revulsion. The mirror in my ship's medical bay shows me what I've become, skin that shifts between flesh and something chitinous, eyes that hold too many pupils, fingers that end in points capable of piercing hull plating. Beautiful, in its way. Functional. Evolved. Marcus Chen, I continue, reading from the data pad floating beside his head. Age 47. Weapons specialist aboard the Crimson Tide. 3 children, ages 12, 15, and 18. Currently attending New Geneva Academy on scholarship funds you've been sending anonymously. I pause, watching hope flicker in his eyes. How precious. How human. I've already visited them. The sound he makes isn't quite human anymore. I should know. Your youngest daughter, Mai. She was studying xenobiology. Following in her father's footsteps, she told the admissions counselor. Ironic, don't you think? I activate the neural probe again, and his body arches against the restraints. She was very curious about the specimens I brought to show her class. Very eager to learn. I'm lying, of course. The children are unharmed, safely tucked away in their dormitories, blissfully unaware that their father's past has caught up with him. But Marcus doesn't know that, and his anguish feeds something deep in my chest cavity where my heart used to beat with merely human rhythm. This is what I've become, a creature that feeds on suffering as much as sustenance. The parasites taught me that. They taught me many things. 12 years ago, Elena, come see this. David's voice carried across the lab, bright with excitement. Dr. Elena Voss, that was my name then, when names meant something beyond identification tags for prey, looked up from the cellular analysis display. My husband stood hunched over the containment unit, his dark hair falling across his forehead in that way that had made me fall in love with him 15 years earlier. What is it? I moved toward him, noting the unusual activity in specimen tank 7. The parasites, we designated them Symbioticus adaptabilis, writhed with more energy than usual, their translucent bodies pulsing with bioluminescent patterns I'd never seen before. I think they're trying to communicate, David said, his voice hushed with wonder. Look at these neural firing patterns. There's structure here, Elena. Language. I studied the readouts, my scientific mind racing. If David was right, if these creatures possessed true intelligence. The implications were staggering. We weren't just studying parasites anymore. We were making first contact. Mommy. Daddy. 7-year-old Sarah burst into the lab, her school uniform disheveled from another day of exploring Kepler Station's endless corridors. Mrs. Peterson says you're talking to aliens. I swept my daughter into my arms, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. Not talking exactly, sweetheart. But we think they might be trying to say hello. Sarah pressed her face against the containment unit's transparent aluminum viewing port. They're pretty. Like little dancing stars. Dancing stars, David repeated softly. I like that better than our clinical designation. This was happiness. This was what it meant to be human, standing in a laboratory on the edge of known space, holding my child while my husband made discoveries that would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. We were explorers, scientists, a family bound together by love and wonder. The alarms began screaming 18 hours later. I jerked awake in our quarters, David's arm tightening around me reflexively. Red emergency lighting bathed our small room, and the station's computer voice echoed through the corridors. Hull breach in Sector 7. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Pirates, David breathed, his face going pale. We'd heard the reports from other research stations, well-organized raids targeting xenobiological specimens and research data. The black market for alien artifacts was lucrative enough to make the risks worthwhile. Sarah. I was already moving, pulling on my lab coat over sleep clothes. We have to get to Sarah. The station shuddered around us as we ran through corridors filled with emergency lighting and panicked researchers. Sarah's quarters were in the family section, 3 levels down from the labs. We made it halfway before the second wave of explosions shook the station like a child's toy. This way. David grabbed my hand, pulling me toward an auxiliary corridor. The main lifts are compromised. We descended through service tunnels filled with the acrid smell of burning circuitry and something else, something organic and wrong. Bodies. The first wave of pirates had been efficient. Sarah's room was empty, her bed still warm. My heart hammered against my ribs as David checked the closet, the tiny bathroom, anywhere a frightened child might hide. The safe room, I gasped. She knows to go to the safe room. The family emergency shelter was 3 doors down, a reinforced panic room designed to protect non-essential personnel during evacuations. The door stood open, its heavy security locks blasted apart. Inside was a charnel house. Families huddled together in death, mothers shielding children who had died anyway, fathers clutching weapons that had proven useless against military-grade assault rifles. And there, in the far corner, her small body curled around her favorite stuffed animal. Sarah. The word came out as a whisper, then a wail that seemed to tear itself from my throat. I fell to my knees beside her, gathering her cooling form against my chest. She looked peaceful, almost sleeping, except for the neat laser wound in her forehead. Elena. David's voice broke on my name. He knelt beside us, his hands shaking as he reached out to touch our daughter's face. Oh God, Elena, I'm so sorry. I should have gotten here faster, should have, well. Looks like we missed a couple of lab rats. The voice came from behind us, casual and amused. I turned, still clutching Sarah, to see 3 figures in tactical armor standing in the doorway. Pirates, their faces hidden behind tactical visors, weapons trained on us with professional competence. Please, David said, rising slowly with his hands visible. We're just researchers. We don't have anything valuable. The leader, I could tell by his bearing, the way the others deferred to him, laughed. Oh, but you do. Those little dancing parasites in your lab? Worth a fortune to the right buyers. Too bad you won't be around to see what we do with them. Wait. A woman's voice, the pirate to the leader's left. Aren't these the ones? Voss, right? Elena and David Voss. The leader's helmet turned toward me, and I could feel his attention like a physical weight. Dr. Elena Voss. The xenobiologist. Well, I'll be damned. He gestured to his companions. Change of plans. The good doctor comes with us. Her research notes are worth more than the specimens themselves. No. David stepped between me and the pirates. You've already taken everything that matters. Just kill us. Let us die with our daughter. I don't think so. The leader raised his weapon. Marcus, Chen, secure the woman. Kill the husband. David, no. I lunged forward, but strong hands grabbed my arms, dragging me backward. The laser blast caught David's center mass, and he crumpled without a sound. His eyes found mine as he fell, and I saw love there, and sorrow, and something like relief. I don't remember much of what happened next. There was screaming, my voice, I think, and the sensation of being dragged through corridors that ran red with emergency lighting and blood. The pirates had been thorough. Kepler Station's complement of 847 researchers, support staff, and family members had been reduced to maybe 24 survivors, all of them selected for specific skills or knowledge. They locked me in a cargo hold with the other valuable prisoners while they loaded our life's work into their ship's holds. I sat in the corner, staring at nothing, Sarah's blood still staining my lab coat. Around me, my colleagues wept or raged or sat in stunned silence. Dr. Liu, the station's chief psychiatrist, kept trying to get me to respond to basic questions. Elena, can you hear me? Elena, I need you to drink some water. But I was somewhere else entirely, lost in a place where Sarah was still alive, where David was still making jokes about my excessive organization of specimen containers, where we were still a family exploring the wonders of the universe together. The explosion brought me back to the present. The crimson tide shuddered as something massive impacted its hull. Emergency klaxons wailed, and our captors' voices echoed through the ship's communication system, sharp with panic. Contact with Union Patrol. All hands to battle stations. The battle was brief and vicious. The patrol ship had superior firepower, but the pirates had experience and desperation. In the end, both vessels were crippled, drifting in space as their life support systems failed one by one. The pirates made a choice then, one that would haunt what remained of my dreams for years to come. Rather than risk capture, they decided to eliminate all evidence of their raid. Starting with the witnesses. They came for us systematically. The historians first, then the archaeologists, then the linguists. Each execution was carried out with brutal efficiency. No ceremony, no last words. Just the sharp crack of a sidearm and another brilliant mind snuffed out. Dr. Liu was third to last. He looked at me as they dragged him away, his eyes filled with compassion even in his terror. Remember who you are, Elena, he whispered. Don't let them take that too. When they came for me, I was ready. The cargo hold where they'd stored our research materials had been damaged in the battle. Containment protocols had failed, and the temperature controls were offline. Including the systems keeping the Symbioticus adaptabilis specimens in stasis. They were awake now, those dancing stars my daughter had found so beautiful. Awake and hungry and desperate to survive in a universe that seemed determined to destroy everything I loved. The pirate who came to collect me, Marcus Chen, though I wouldn't learn his name until much later, found me sitting beside the largest specimen container, my hand pressed against its surface. The parasites within pulsed with that bioluminescent language David had been so excited to decode. Time to go, Doctor, Chen said, his weapon trained on my chest. Captain wants to space you personally. They're trying to tell me something, I said softly, not moving. The parasites. They know what you did. Chen snorted. Right. Come on. But I didn't move. Couldn't move. Because the container was cracked, and something warm and alive was flowing from it, up my arm, into my bloodstream. The parasites had made their choice, symbiosis with a willing host rather than death in the void. The transformation began immediately. Pain beyond description, as if every cell in my body was being disassembled and rebuilt. I screamed, but the sound that emerged wasn't entirely human. Chen stepped backward, his weapon wavering as my skin began to shift and change. What the hell? I moved faster than human reflexes should allow, faster than physics should permit. My hand closed around his throat, and I felt my fingers extend, sharpening into points that pierced his tactical armor like tissue paper. You took everything from me, I said, and my voice carried harmonics that made him shudder. Now I take everything from you. The killing should have disgusted me. Should have traumatized me. Instead, it felt right. Natural. The parasites whispered in frequencies only I could hear, teaching me about pain, about fear, about the exquisite art of revenge. Chen died slowly, and I learned from his dying. The other pirates found his body 20 minutes later. By then, I was no longer entirely human, and the ship's ventilation system carried my new children throughout the vessel. The Symbioticus adaptabilis were very good at adaptation, as their name suggested. They learned quickly from each new host, incorporating the best aspects of human physiology while discarding the limitations. Like conscience. Like mercy. Like the weakness that had allowed my family to die. I killed them all, every pirate aboard that ship. Not quickly, not cleanly, but with the methodical precision of a scientist conducting an experiment. I learned their names, their histories, their fears. I discovered who had organized the raid, who had pulled the trigger on David, who had given the order to execute the families first. Captain Rex Mordecai. I saved him for last, naturally. When the Union rescue ship arrived 3 days later, they found me alone aboard the Crimson Tide, surrounded by corpses and reading through the pirates' personal files. The parasites had retreated deeper into my system by then, allowing me to pass for human at a cursory glance. I told the rescuers that the pirates had turned on each other, that I'd hidden until the fighting stopped. They believed me. After all, I was Dr. Elena Voss, respected xenobiologist, grieving widow and mother. What reason would they have to doubt my story? The debriefing took weeks. Counseling sessions with Union psychiatrists who wanted to help me process my trauma. Meetings with intelligence officers who wanted every detail about the pirates' organization and methods. All the while, the parasites whispered in my blood, showing me new possibilities, new capabilities. New purposes. I began my hunt 6 months later. Present day, Marcus Chen's body has stopped twitching. The neural probe, combined with the parasites I introduced to his system, has reduced his nervous system to jelly. He's still breathing, technically still alive, but his brain can no longer process sensory input or control motor functions. A living vegetable, aware but helpless. It's a fate I've come to appreciate for its poetic justice. 12 down, I murmur, consulting my list. The Crimson Tide had carried a crew of 47 when they raided Kepler Station. I've been working through them systematically, tracking each survivor through the galactic underworld's network of contacts and safe houses. 35 to go. Chen won't be providing any more information, his mind is too damaged now, but I've already extracted what I needed. The location of their next gathering, a reunion of sorts on Titan's Folly, a lawless asteroid mining station in the Outer Rim. How thoughtful of them to cluster together for me. I activate the ship's autopilot and set course for the Outer Rim. 3 days of travel time, enough to make preparations and consider my approach. The parasites pulse in my bloodstream, eager for the hunt, but I've learned patience over the years. Revenge is most satisfying when it's properly orchestrated. My ship, the Dancing Star, named for Sarah's description of the parasites, is a modified research vessel, equipped with advanced laboratories and specimen containment facilities. Over the years, I've made improvements. The parasites have taught me so much about biological engineering, about pushing the boundaries of what life can become. Chen's body will serve as raw material for my next batch of hunting tools. Waste not, want not, as my mother used to say. Though I doubt she envisioned this particular application of the principle. The medical bay's automated systems are already processing his remains, extracting useful genetic material and organs for my experiments. The parasites have given me an appreciation for efficiency, for using every part of what I kill. Nothing wasted, everything serving the greater purpose. Which is revenge, of course. Always revenge. But as I work, splitting my attention between navigation and specimen preparation, I find my thoughts drifting to Dr. Liu. Dear, kind Dr. Liu, who had tried so hard to help me in those first dark months after Kepler Station. Who had looked past my growing strangeness, my increasing detachment from human emotion, and seen something worth saving. I'd killed him 8 years ago. He'd found me on Vega 7, where I was tracking down another member of the Crimson Tide's crew. I'd cornered the pirate, a demolitions expert named Torres, in a warehouse on the station's industrial level. The hunt had been elaborate. I'd spent weeks introducing modified parasites into the station's water supply, creating a network of infected hosts who could track Torres's movements and report back to me. It was beautiful work, really. The infected retained most of their cognitive functions but gained an overriding compulsion to serve my interests. A hive mind of sorts, with me as the queen. The parasites had taught me about collective consciousness, about the power that came from subsuming individual will to a greater purpose. Torres had realized something was wrong when his drinking companions started following him home, when vendors remembered his purchases with unusual clarity, when everyone he encountered seemed to be watching him with eyes that held too much intelligence. He tried to run, of course. They always did. I caught him in the warehouse, surrounded by shipping containers that blocked the screams. I'd been creative in my approach. Rather than simply killing him, I'd infected him with a specially designed parasite that would slowly convert his nervous system into a living recorder, preserving every memory, every sensation, every moment of pain for later study. Scientific method applied to revenge. It was intoxicating. Dr. Liu found me 3 days into the process. Elena. His voice carried the same gentle authority it had possessed during our counseling sessions. Please, stop this. I looked up from my work, noting the way he flinched at the sight of my face. The parasites had been making changes, improvements to my physical form. My features were sharper now, more predatory, and my eyes held a bioluminescent quality that made them glow in dim light. Dr. Liu, I said, genuinely pleased to see him. How did you find me? I've been tracking you for months, he admitted, stepping carefully around the pools of blood that surrounded my work area. Following the reports of strange deaths, unexplained disappearances. Elena, what have you become? Torres moaned from where he hung suspended in my improvised laboratory setup. The parasites were making good progress, his nervous system was approximately 60% converted, with full memory integration expected within another day or two. I've become what I needed to become, I replied, returning my attention to the neural probe's readouts. What the universe required me to become. This isn't what David would have wanted. This isn't what Sarah would have wanted. The probe slipped in my hand, sending an uncontrolled burst of energy through Torres's brain. He convulsed, screaming, and something precious, weeks of careful conditioning, was lost in the neural static. I turned toward Dr. Liu, and he took an involuntary step backward. The parasites whispered warnings in my blood, recognizing a threat to our purpose. Don't, I said softly, speak their names. Elena, please. I know you're still in there somewhere. The woman who loved her family, who dedicated her life to understanding the universe, she's still part of you. You don't have to continue down this path. He was wrong, of course. That woman had died on Kepler Station, along with her husband and daughter. What stood before him now was evolution, adaptation, the next step in the endless dance of predator and prey. But some small part of me, a part one thought had been consumed years ago, responded to his words. For just a moment, I remembered what it had felt like to be human. To feel compassion instead of hunger, love instead of calculated interest. The moment passed. You're right, I said, moving toward him with fluid grace. She is still part of me. But she's not in control anymore. The parasites had taught me about integration, about how separate consciousnesses could be woven together into something greater than the sum of their parts. Dr. Liu fought valiantly as I infected him, his trained mind struggling against the alien influence even as his body began to change. In the end, he became part of my collection, another voice in the chorus of memories I carried, another perspective to draw upon in my hunt. His knowledge of human psychology proved invaluable in the years that followed, helping me understand how to break my prey most efficiently. He still whispers sometimes, in the quiet moments between kills, pleading with me to remember who I used to be. I find his persistence amusing rather than troubling. After all, every predator needs to understand its prey, and who better to explain human weakness than someone who had dedicated his life to healing human minds? 3 days later, Titan's Folly, the mining station orbits a gas giant in an unnamed system, a ramshackle collection of habitation modules and industrial equipment held together by prayer and desperation. It's the perfect place for criminals to gather, no union presence, no questions asked, and plenty of places to hide bodies. I dock at a peripheral bay, my ship's stealth modifications keeping it invisible to the station's primitive sensors. Titan's Folly processes perhaps a dozen ships per day, mostly smugglers and pirates looking to fence stolen goods. One more anonymous vessel won't attract attention. The station's atmosphere is breathable but stale, recycled through filters that have seen better decades. The corridors are narrow and dimly lit, designed for function rather than comfort. Perfect hunting ground for a predator who prefers shadows to open spaces. I've prepared extensively for this encounter. 35 targets, all gathered in one location for what they believe is a celebration of their success. The Crimson Tide survivors have done well for themselves over the years, building a reputation as one of the Outer Rim's most feared pirate crews. They've killed thousands of people since Kepler Station. Destroyed dozens of research facilities, slave ships, cargo haulers. Men, women, children, it makes no difference to them. They're efficient predators, apex killers who have carved out a bloody empire among the stars. I respect their success even as I plan to end it. The parasites have been busy during our journey, preparing specialized hunters for each target. I know their names, their faces, their strengths and weaknesses. More importantly, I know their fears. Marcus Chen provided extensive intelligence before his mind collapsed, and the other survivors I've interviewed over the years filled in the remaining gaps. Rex Mordecai, the captain, fears being forgotten more than death itself. He craves legacy, recognition for his accomplishments. I'll make sure he's remembered, though perhaps not as he intended. His lieutenant, Eva Cross, has claustrophobia stemming from a childhood accident. She'll spend her final hours in very tight spaces indeed. The weapons specialist, Dmitry Kozlov, lost his left arm in a Union patrol encounter and wears a sophisticated prosthetic. He's proud of his marksmanship, considers himself an artist with energy weapons. I'm curious to see how well he shoots when his nervous system is hosting several dozen parasites. And so on, and so on. Each pirate will receive personal attention, customized torment designed to break them in the most psychologically devastating way possible. It's not enough to simply kill them, any amateur could manage that. True artistry lies in making them understand exactly why they're dying, in forcing them to confront the consequences of their choices. The reunion is being held in the station's main recreation facility, a converted cargo bay that serves as bar, brothel, and fighting pit depending on the hour. I position myself at a maintenance access point overlooking the gathering and observe my prey. They're drunk, mostly, celebrating some recent success. Pirates are creatures of habit, and the passage of 12 years hasn't changed their fundamental nature. They drink, they boast, they plan new atrocities with casual indifference to the suffering they cause. Perfect. I've brought gifts. The first wave of my children, modified parasites designed for rapid infection and cognitive override, enter the ventilation system as a fine aerosol. The station's atmosphere recycling systems will distribute them throughout the facility within minutes. Unlike my earlier, cruder efforts, these parasites are designed for subtlety. The infected won't realize anything has changed until it's far too late. The second wave consists of larger specimens, hunters capable of independent action and complex problem-solving. I've been breeding them for years, selecting for intelligence, aggression, and loyalty to my purpose. They move through the station's service corridors like living shadows, taking positions at every exit, every possible escape route. The third wave is me. I descend into the recreation facility through a cargo chute, landing silently in the shadows behind the makeshift bar. The pirates are too drunk, too comfortable in their assumed safety to notice one more shadow among many. Ladies and gentlemen, I say, my voice carrying easily across the crowded space. Conversations halt. Weapons are drawn with impressive speed. These are professionals, after all, survivors of countless battles. But the parasites have been at work for several minutes now, and many of the pirates are no longer entirely in control of their actions. My name is Dr. Elena Voss, I continue, stepping into the light. You murdered my family 12 years ago aboard Kepler station. I've spent every day since then preparing for our reunion. Rex Mordecai recognizes me instantly. I can see it in his eyes, the dawning comprehension of what my presence means. He's older now, his hair gone gray, his face marked by years of violence and hard living. But he's still the man who ordered David's execution, who stood by while my daughter was murdered. Impossible, he breathes. You died on the Crimson Tide. I saw the reports. You saw what I wanted you to see, I reply, beginning to walk toward him. The crowd parts before me, pirates stumbling aside with expressions of confusion and growing fear. The parasites are taking hold now, overriding individual will, turning my enemies into unwilling servants. The thing is, Captain, you made a mistake that night. You left me alone with my specimens, with creatures you couldn't possibly understand. You gave me the tools for my own evolution. I raise my hand, and my fingers extend into razor-sharp claws. The pirates closest to me scramble backward, but there's nowhere to run. My children have sealed every exit, and the infected are turning on their companions with expressions of horrified confusion. It's beautiful, really. Chaos with purpose, violence in service of a greater design. Mordecai draws his sidearm, a military-grade pulse pistol that could punch through hull plating. His aim is steady despite his shock, credit where it's due, the man is a professional. But the weapon clicks empty. Someone has tampered with the power cell. One of his own crew, now wearing the glassy-eyed expression of the infected, steps up behind him and removes the weapon from his unresisting fingers. Eva, Mordecai says, his voice cracking. Eva, what are you doing? Lieutenant Cross doesn't answer. Can't answer, really. The parasites have overridden her speech centers, turning her vocal cords into a speaker for my will. She's serving a higher purpose now, I say through her mouth, my voice emerging from her throat in perfect harmony with my own. They all are. The slaughter begins in earnest then. I could describe it in detail, the screams, the blood, the exquisite artistry of predator and prey locked in their eternal dance. But some experiences transcend description, exist in realms beyond language or rational thought. Let me say only this, by the time the sun rises over Titan's Folly's artificial horizon, I am the only conscious being left aboard the station. The others aren't dead, death would be too simple, too merciful. Instead, they're integrated, their minds and bodies repurposed in service of my greater design. Rex Mordecai hangs in the station's central core, his body kept alive by machines while his consciousness experiences an endless loop of his victims' final moments. Every death he ordered, every life he destroyed, played back in perfect detail for his personal education. He'll live for years this way, decades perhaps, learning empathy through enforced experience. It's more mercy than he showed my family. The other pirates serve different functions. Some become biological processors, their enhanced nervous systems serving as living computers for my growing network. Others are converted into hunters, their bodies modified and improved for tracking down the remaining members of their organization. Because this was never just about the Crimson Tide, you understand. It was about the entire system that allowed them to exist, the network of criminals and corrupt officials who profit from suffering and death. I've been busy these past 12 years, building my own organization, my own empire. Every death teaches me more about the nature of evil, about the complex webs of cause and effect that allow monsters to flourish in civilized space. The Union talks about justice, about law and order and the protection of innocent life. But they're reactive, not proactive. They investigate crimes after they've been committed, pursue criminals after the damage is done. Their justice is an abstract concept, a legal proceeding that reduces human suffering to evidence and testimony. My justice is different. Personal. Immediate. I hunt the monsters before they can create new victims. I eliminate threats before they metastasize into greater evils. It's a more honest approach, really, predator hunting predator, with no pretense of civilized restraint. The parasites approve. They've shown me truths about the universe that human science never suspected, revealed patterns of cause and effect that span galaxies and generations. Evil is not an aberration in the cosmic order, it's a fundamental force, as natural and necessary as gravity or electromagnetism. But so is its opposite. So am I. 6 months later, Europa Station, the children's laughter echoes through the research facility's family quarters, innocent and joyful and absolutely perfect. I watch from the shadows of an unused laboratory, observing the families as they go about their daily routines. Dar. Sarah Chen, she kept her maiden name after marriage, how progressive, is explaining quantum mechanics to her 8-year-old son while her husband prepares dinner in their small kitchen. The boy asks intelligent questions, shows genuine curiosity about the universe around him. Just like my Sarah used to. Dr. Chen is brilliant, her research into quantum entanglement applications earning recognition throughout the Union. She's published papers that advance human understanding of faster-than-light communication, open doors to technologies that could revolutionize interstellar civilization. She's also Marcus Chen's niece, the daughter of his brother who died in a mining accident when she was 12. Marcus sent anonymous payments for her education, supported her through graduate school, made her scientific career possible. The parasites whisper in my blood, reminding me of the connections that bind all life together. Actions and consequences, causes and effects, the endless web of responsibility that links every choice to every outcome. Marcus Chen helped slaughter my family, but he also helped create a brilliant scientist who might unlock the secrets of the universe. His money, stolen from innocent victims, purchased textbooks and laboratory equipment that advanced human knowledge. Does good arising from evil negate the original sin? Do the ends justify the means? These are the questions that occupy my thoughts as I watch Dr. Chen tuck her son into bed, as I observe her husband kiss her goodnight before settling down to read technical journals. They're a beautiful family. Happy. Productive. Everything that mine could have been if not for the actions of men like Marcus Chen. The rational thing would be to spare them. Dr. Chen had nothing to do with Kepler Station, bears no responsibility for her uncle's crimes. Killing her would serve no purpose beyond satisfying my need for symmetry, for completing the pattern that began with Marcus's death. But rationality is a human concept, and I'm no longer entirely human. I've spent 12 years becoming something else, something that exists beyond the limitations of conscience and moral constraint. The parasites have taught me about evolution, about adaptation, about the harsh necessities of survival in an indifferent universe. And they've taught me that the greatest predators are those who can hunt without emotion, kill without guilt, evolve without the burden of ethical consideration. I enter the Chen family's quarters through the ventilation system, my modified physiology allowing me to compress my body into spaces that would be impossible for normal humans. The children are asleep, young David in his room, baby Emma in her crib beside her parents' bed. They die quietly, without fear or pain. I've learned techniques over the years, methods for ending life that minimize suffering while maximizing the psychological impact on any survivors. The parasites whisper their approval as I work, their alien intelligence appreciating the artistry of efficient elimination. Dr. Chen and her husband are last. They wake to find me standing over their children's bodies, my hands still dripping with evidence of my work. Please, Dr. Chen whispers, her scientific mind struggling to process what she's seeing. Please, they're just children. They never hurt anyone. Neither did mine, I reply, my voice carrying harmonics that make her shudder. But your uncle helped kill them anyway. The recognition dawns in her eyes then, the understanding of who I am and why I'm here. She doesn't beg for her own life, scientists tend to be pragmatic about cause and effect, but she does ask about her research, about the experiments that might die with her. I find her concern touching, in a way. Even facing death, she thinks about the advancement of human knowledge. It's almost enough to make me reconsider. Almost. Her husband tries to fight, of course. He's young, strong, motivated by love and desperation. But I'm something beyond human now, evolved past the limitations of flesh and bone. The parasites have given me capabilities that human physiology could never support. He dies bravely, I'll give him that. Fighting to the end, trying to protect his family even when the situation is hopeless. It's the kind of nobility that humans celebrate in their stories, the heroic sacrifice that validates their beliefs about love and honor and moral courage. But stories don't matter in the real world. Results matter. Evolution matters. And I am evolution in action. I take my time with Dr. Chen herself, not out of cruelty but from genuine curiosity. She's remarkably similar to the woman I used to be, brilliant, dedicated, driven by wonder at the universe's complexity. In another timeline, we might have been colleagues, friends even. But this is the timeline where her uncle helped murder my family, where his actions set in motion the chain of events that led to this moment. Cause and effect, action and consequence, the inexorable logic of justice served without compromise. She dies understanding why, which is more than most of my prey can claim. Present day, aboard the Dancing Star, I float in the modified laboratory that serves as my ship's heart, suspended in a nutrient bath that feeds both my human tissues and the parasitic colonies that have integrated themselves throughout my body. The distinction between self and symbiont has long since ceased to matter. We are one organism now, one consciousness spread across multiple biological systems. The hunt is complete. Every member of the Crimson Tide crew is dead, along with their families, their associates, their financial backers, and anyone else who profited from their crimes. 437 people in total, each death carefully planned and precisely executed. Justice, as I understand it, has been served. But justice, I've learned, is a more complex concept than I originally realized. The elimination of the Crimson Tide hasn't restored my family to life, hasn't healed the wounds inflicted on Kepler Station. It has, however, revealed new patterns of causation, new webs of responsibility that demand attention. The mining consortium that hired the pirates to eliminate rival research facilities. The corrupt union officials who provided inside information about research station security protocols. The weapons manufacturers who sold military-grade equipment to known criminals, asking no questions as long as payment cleared. All of them complicit. All of them responsible. All of them prey. My ship's databases contain detailed files on 17,000 individuals whose actions, directly or indirectly, contributed to my family's death. Politicians who voted against increased funding for frontier security. Journalists who ignored reports of pirate activity in favor of more profitable stories. Corporate executives who prioritized profits over human life. The web of responsibility extends far beyond the pirates themselves, encompasses entire sectors of human civilization that operate on principles of willful ignorance and calculated indifference. They create the conditions that allow monsters to flourish, then express shock and outrage when those monsters inevitably strike. It's a system that demands correction. Evolution. Improvement. And I am uniquely qualified to provide it. The parasites pulse in my bloodstream, their alien intelligence offering insights into patterns of causation that span centuries, millennia. They've shown me truths about the nature of justice that human philosophy has never imagined, revealed the fundamental equations that govern predator-prey relationships across galactic scales. I've been thinking small, you see. Focused on individual criminals, specific acts of violence, personal revenge rather than systemic reform. But true evolution operates on broader scales, targets entire species rather than isolated specimens. Humanity created the conditions that killed my family. Humanity's greed, indifference, and moral cowardice enabled the pirates who destroyed everything I loved. Individual humans might be innocent of specific crimes, but the species as a whole bears responsibility for the systems that allow evil to flourish. Perhaps it's time for humanity to face the consequences of its choices. Time for a more evolved form of life to inherit the stars. The thought fills me with something that might once have been satisfaction but now transcends such limited emotional categories. The parasites have taught me about collective consciousness, about the beauty of unified purpose unconstrained by individual will. Imagine humanity perfected, billions of minds linked in harmonious cooperation, working together toward common goals without the friction of personal ambition or conflicting desires. No more war, no more poverty, no more children dying while their parents' killers walk free. I could give that to them. Give it to the universe. All it would require is the elimination of a few billion individuals who refuse to accept evolutionary improvement. The process would be extensive, certainly. But no more violent than humanity's own history, no more ruthless than the pirates who taught me about the fundamental nature of survival. The irony is delicious, really. In seeking revenge for my family's murder, I've become something capable of murdering billions of families. The victim has become the predator, the wounded scientist has evolved into an instrument of species-wide extinction. David would be horrified. Sarah would flee in terror from what I've become. But they're dead, their voices silenced by humanity's casual cruelty. The only voice that matters now is mine, and the alien chorus that sings in my blood, showing me the beautiful mathematics of evolutionary selection. I set course for the core worlds, where humanity's population centers cluster around their homeworld like fruit waiting to be harvested. My ship's holds carry enough parasitic specimens to seed entire star systems, enough modified hunters to overwhelm any conceivable resistance. It will be efficient. It will be thorough. It will be evolution in action. Behind me, the outer rim burns with the light of dying stars, and somewhere in that darkness, the ghosts of 47 pirates dance in the vacuum, their screams adding harmony to the song of justice served without mercy or restraint. I was Dr. Elena Voss once, a woman who loved her family and dedicated her life to expanding human knowledge of the universe. That woman died on Kepler Station, murdered by greed and indifference as surely as any pulse rifle could have killed her. What emerged from her death was something else entirely, something that human language lacks words to describe, something that exists beyond the limitations of conscience, ethics, or species loyalty. I am evolution. I am justice. I am the future of life in this galaxy. And I am very, very hungry. The stars will overhead as my ship accelerates toward the heart of human civilization, carrying death in its holds and extinction in its purpose. Somewhere ahead, billions of humans go about their daily lives, unaware that their species' evolutionary journey is about to take a dramatic turn. I smile, and the expression carries no trace of humanity whatsoever. The hunt begins anew. The end.